So I was up very late last night because I had the germ of an idea that I became fixated on and had to develop. Basically, the idea is potentially a new twist on a description of the universe and how the concept of a God can be shown to be superfluous. Now, before I begin, I want to acknowledge that I am neither a mathematician nor a physicist, and this idea is firmly grounded in both disciplines. So either I am way off base here, or I'm retreading what others have already thought but I had not heard of, or I've laid groundwork here which can be expanded upon by better thinkers than I. If I'm off the mark and someone can explain to me why, that won't break my heart. Okay, so before I can begin with my idea, I have to flesh out my understanding of the 10-dimensional omniverse as background. Again, I may be misdescribing this, but this is how I understand the theory. Our universe, as we experience it, is built in 4 dimensions, 3 of spatial dimension and 1 of linear time. To understand the 3 spatial dimensions, we use basic geometric concepts of points, lines, and planes, wherein from any point in space we can imagine a line extending in any direction to define a first dimension. And from that initial point we can also imagine lines radiating in all directions on a plane to establish 2-dimensionality. Then we can also plot points all along all of those lines on the plane to create reference marks, and if we then fold the plane on itself, we have a 3-dimensional reality created from that plane. As for time, it too can be referenced with a point which we commonly refer to as an instant. Time then moves forward in a linear fashion from that first point on a path through an infinite number of concurrent instances, and we've established 1 dimension of linear time. Yet we can also imagine branches coming from each of those points along the line. Those points and lines which are not part of the path of linear time represent potential timelines which might have occurred but from our perspective did not. For example, I'm moving my finger to the right, but I might just as easily have decided to move it to the left. So from this point in linear time, a potential timeline exists where I did move my finger to the left. However, so far, all the points have moved in only one direction along the timeline, that being forward. But just as with the spatial 2-dimensional plane, if I curve the plane back on itself so that any 2 points meet, I have thus established a 3rd dimension of time where any 2 points in history can be experienced simultaneously. As I understand it, this is the basis of the many worlds theory, which suggests that any potentiality which may have existed has existed, and currently coexists in an inclusive multiverse composed of parallel universes. Thus we live concurrently in both a 4-dimensional universe and as part of a 6-dimensional multiverse. But there's more. This multiverse is only one potential multiverse of potential universes that have erupted since the origin of this inception at the Big Bang, or whatever initially instigated the universe, multiverse that we experience. Whatever that first cause was, there were also an infinite number of alternate possibilities or potentialities that would have caused different multiverses. Since these may have occurred, there are also alternate timelines in which they did occur. And there are therefore an infinite number of points on a 2-dimensional plane of potential alternate multiverses, which we can call the panverse. This can also be curved back onto itself to connect any 2 points to establish a 3-dimensional omniverse. Ergo, the 7th dimension is all potential multiverses originating at our Big Bang. The 8th dimension is all potential multiverses originating at all possible alternate origin events, including the Big Bang. And the 9th dimension is the sum of all potential universes and multiverses, which is an infinite and eternal set, taken in its totality simultaneously. This conception of an omniverse is then also considered as a point of reference, which is itself a dimension unto itself for a 10th and final dimension. Now I'm sure I've grossly simplified this description, although it still sounds complicated and confusing to me. And this is how I understand physicists currently view the model of the sum of all potentiality. Also, as I understand it, it is this potentiality of parallel and concurrent universes that is the basis for string theory, which suggests tendrils which flow between the various experiences of universes through the 7th dimension, which as they pass into this reality become energy, and therefore become matter, and therefore are the physical embodiment of our 3-dimensional reality. Now I make no claim that I fully understand this, nor can I envision this conceptually. But it still leaves an unanswered question to my mind, which I'm not even sure I can articulate, but I'm going to try. What, in the void of what is now the omniverse, necessitates these strings? Now, I've heard it said that this void is self-referential and that the circular sort of disembodied introspection mathematically makes 0 equal to not 0, which is self-annihilating, blah, blah, blah. But that's not satisfying. Saying that a concept references itself does not describe how a non-mind develops the ability to make references prior to its own inception. But then it came to me that if we go back to the beginning and reference a point on the first dimension, the only thing that describes that dimension is our reference to it. In other words, depth is only depth while we are looking forward. Lie down, and length becomes depth. Turn 90 degrees, and width becomes depth. A 10-dimensional object such as the omniverse can be shifted in more ways than that. If 3-dimensional space can be shifted 3 to the power of 3 ways for 9 potential references, then a 10-dimensional omniverse can be shifted 10 to the power of 10 ways for 10 billion potential references. What this suggests to me is that all of the dimensions of the omniverse can be referenced as being either the first, second, third, fourth, or any other dimension, including the 10th, and that any given point on any line or plane can be the point which is the 10th dimensional omniverse from any given point of reference. So the void that becomes the omniverse is not self-referential, it's reference-dependent, because even a first point has to be referenced, as points have no dimensionality, and so does nothingness. It follows that absolute nothingness is not possible. Points necessitate lines, and lines necessitate planes. And planes necessitate curved planes, which have to exist concurrently with time as well as part of time, which is infinitely full of potentiality, which is the foundation and ultimate reason for all of the other dimensions. Nothingness therefore compels somethingness, and no deity is necessary. Thank you.